Kate Morgan walked through the dark corridors of the abandoned station with her weapon ready and her heart pounding in her chest like a drum that would not stop beating no matter how hard she tried to stay calm and focused on the mission ahead of her, because this place felt wrong in ways she could not explain to anyone, even if they asked her to describe the feeling that crawled up her spine like ice water dripping down her back, one cold drop at a time the distress beacon had brought her ship here to this place where stars died slowly and stations floated like ghosts in the endless darkness of space, where no one should have been, but someone was here, and that someone was breathing heavy enough for Kate to hear the sound echoing through the metal walls that surrounded her on all sides. She turned the corner and stopped moving completely because her brain could not process what her eyes were showing her in front of where she stood, frozen like a statue made of flesh and bone and fear. The creature was huge beyond anything she had ever seen before, with scales that changed colors, like oil floating on water, reflecting shades that should not exist in nature or anywhere else in the universe that Kate knew about. And its eyes were pools of amber light that looked at her with intelligence that made her finger hesitate on the trigger of her weapon. But the dragon was not alone in this place. Woman stood next to the massive beast with one hand resting on its side, like they were old friends who had known each other for many years and trusted each other completely without question or doubt. The woman was small compared to the dragon, but she stood tall and proud with features that looked almost human, but not quite right, because her ears came to points at the tips, and her skin glowed faintly in the dim light of the corridor, and her eyes were violet like flowers. Kate had seen once in a garden back on Earth when she was just a child. Those violet eyes looked at Kate with an expression of relief so strong it made the air between them feel heavy and thick like water instead of empty space. The woman spoke in a voice that made English sound like music from another world entirely when she said that she had been searching for Kate for years and years without stopping or giving up hope that she would find her. Someday Kate felt her training telling her to call for help and maintain distance, and follow all the rules she had learned in the military. But instead she lowered her weapon just a little bit, because something deep inside her chest recognized this stranger, even though they had never met before in any place or time that Kate could remember. She told the woman that she did not know her at all and had never seen her face before this moment. The woman stepped closer and the dragon moved its massive head to watch her with eyes that missed nothing at all as the woman explained that Kate would not remember their first meeting, because it happened a long time ago when Kate was very young and small. Then the woman said things that made ice form in Kate's veins, because she knew things about Kate that no stranger should know, like the scar on her shoulder from a burn she got on a mission to a distant planet, and how she liked her coffee prepared in a specific way, and the old song she hummed when she thought no one could hear her. VoiceGate asked how this woman could possibly know these private things about her life. A woman said her name was Lyra, and she came from a place called the Scattered Reaches, with her dragon companion named Theron, and they had been tracking a special signal that only Kate carried inside her body for almost 10 years without rest. Kate looked at her display and saw messages coming in from her team, but she ignored them all because she needed to understand what was happening here in this corridor with this strange woman and her impossible dragon. She told Lyra that she was just a soldier and nothing more than that. Lyra shook her head and said Kate was much more than she knew, and if they did not leave this station in the next few minutes, then bad people called the Consortium would find them and kill everyone on Kate's ship, just to capture Kate and take her away. Kate asked what the Consortium was exactly. Lyra explained they were an empire that had been hunting her for 15 years because they wanted Theron dead and all dragons extinct, because dragons could sense lies and could not be controlled or corrupted by anyone, no matter how powerful they were. The woman said she had stayed ahead of the Consortium by being very good at hiding and running, but Kate was different, because Kate was the key to ending a war that had gone on for too long. Theron made a sound like thunder rolling across the sky and turned his massive head toward the corridor behind Kate, with his eyes narrowing into slits and smoke beginning to curl from his nostrils like he could smell danger coming closer. Lyra said the Consortium had found them already, and her voice shook with fear for the first time since Kate had seen her standing there beside her dragon. She asked Kate to trust her, even though it sounded crazy and impossible, because she had been searching for Kate for so many years and could not lose her now when they were finally together in the same place. Kate heard weapons fire echoing through the station and voices shouting orders in her comm unit, and she knew She had to make a choice right now in this moment, with no time to think about consequences or rules or what her captain would say. She made her decision faster than her heartbeat. Kate told them to run and raised her weapon toward the corridor too. Cover their escape, but Lyra said no with a firm voice and told Kate they would run together or not at all, because she would not leave. Kate behind. After searching for her for so long, soldiers appeared at the end of the corridor dressed in black armor that looked like it had been carved from the void of space itself, with weapons that glowed and hummed with deadly energy. Theron opened his mouth and roared with a sound that shook the walls and made Kate feel the vibration in her bones and her teeth and her soul. The war started in that moment with fire and fury. Kate sat on the edge of a medical bed while Dr. Amy Chen ran scanners over her body again and again, with her face showing confusion and wonder mixed together like paint on a canvas behind the clear barrier that kept them separated. Lyra stood, with her arms crossed over her chest and Theron coiled around her like a protective wall of scales and ancient power, despite the small space they had been given. Ami spoke mostly to herself, saying that Kate's cellular structure was impossible and showed quantum connections at the molecular level with neural pathways that should not exist in any human body she had ever studied before. Kate barely heard the doctor words because her head hurt with a pain that had started the moment they escaped from the station and brought Lyra aboard the ship called Horizon. Images kept flashing through her mind like lightning strikes in a storm, showing her places she had never been and memories that belonged to someone else. She saw a sky-colored violet, with 2 moons rising over towers made of crystal, and Lyra, much younger, laughing as Theron flew through clouds that sparkled like diamonds. Lyra's voice came through the barrier, even though the glass should have blocked the sound completely, but Kate heard her clearly as if she was whispering directly into Kate's ear. The woman said it was the bond awakening inside. Kate, body and mind Captain Lisa Hayes, stood by the door with her hand resting on her weapon because she did not trust these strangers who had brought fighting and chaos to her ship. Lisa demanded that Lyra explain again why Kate was connected to an alien who was running from an empire. Lyra met the captain's gaze without fear and said that Kate was not entirely human anymore and had not been human since something called the event happened many years ago. Kate's hands gripped the edge of the bed hard enough to make her knuckles turn white. She said the event was 16 years in the past, when a wormhole accident destroyed a colony ship named Meridian and killed everyone aboard, including her parents, when she was only 6 years old. Lyra nodded slowly, and her eyes held sadness so deep it made Kate's chest hurt to see it. The alien woman said that Kate should have died with everyone else, but someone had pulled her out of the collapsing wormhole, and that someone had no right to be near human space at all. Kate whispered the word, asking Lyra had been the one who saved her. Lyra confirmed it and explained that she was young back then, with barely any training in her people ways, and Theron was only a baby dragon when they found the wormhole falling apart with Kate trapped inside. She said they did not know about humans or the rules they were breaking, because all they saw was a child dying and they could not walk away from that. Tommy spoke up, saying that wormhole exposure during a collapse would have torn Kate apart at the atomic level. Lyra agreed and said that was why she did the only thing she could think of in that moment. She shared her own essence with Kate and bound a piece of her quantum signature to Kate's dying cells and rebuilt her from the inside out, using everything she had when it was finished. Kate was alive, but she carried a part of Lyra inside her body, and that part had been growing stronger over the years. Kate's mind spun with this information as she realized the dreams she had been having for years were actually Lyra memories bleeding through their connection. Lyra said she had been following those echoes and tracking the quantum signatures she left in Kate, trying to find her against. She explained that the bond made Kate something unique in the entire galaxy because she was part human and part scattered. And when Kate became old enough, that essence finally activated completely. Lisa finished the thought by saying Kate became a weapon. Lyra's voice turned fierce as she said no, that Kate became hope instead. The consortium had been conquering star systems for centuries and enslaving entire worlds and killing any species they thought was too dangerous to live. They feared the SEOI people because of their quantum abilities, and they feared dragons because dragons could see through lies and could not be manipulated. But a human and scattered hybrid was something the consortium never expected to exist. Someone who could move between both worlds and carry the strengths of both species, Lyra said Kate. It's the bridge that could unite the resistance and give them a chance. To fight back, Kate laughed, but the sound was bitter and harsh. She said she was just a scout, not a savior of galaxies. Lyra replied gently that Kate was whatever she chose to be, but the consortium knew what Kate was. Now they had detected the signature. When it activated 3 days ago, and that was why they attacked the station, they would keep hunting. Kaden would burn every human world to ash to eliminate her, because she represented something they could not allow to exist. Theron made a low sound, and his amber eyes stayed focused on Kate, with an intelligence that felt almost uncomfortably. Scanner made urgent noises, and she stared at the readings before looking at Kate. With wide eyes, the doctor said Kate's neural activity had jumped by a huge amount, and her cells were changing and reorganizing themselves. Kate felt it happening inside her body, like warmth spreading through her veins, making her feel stronger and more aware than she had ever felt before when she looked at Lyra. She saw more than just the alien woman who saved her life. She saw the frightened girl who risked everything for a stranger in 16 years of searching and running and hoping. Kate said that if she really was this bridge between species, then running would just put more people in danger. Lisa stepped forward and started to protest, but Kate interrupted, saying the consortium followed them to this ship, and they knew about the captain and the crew now staying together would only make more targets. She turned to Lyra and asked how they could unite the resistance if what Lyra said was true. Lyra expression changed from fear to pride as she explained. There was a gathering happening soon at a place called the Rift of Broken Stars. Representatives from many oppressed worlds would be there, but they were all too afraid to act alone. They needed someone to prove that standing against the consortium was possible. Kate said that was where they needed to go. Then she looked at her captain and told Lisa she knew this violated regulations and sounded insane, but if there was a chance to stop an empire from burning human space, she had to take it. Lisa was quiet for a long time, clearly thinking hard about the decision. Finally, she sighed and asked Amy if Kate could survive. The journey Amide checked her instruments and said Kate's physiology was stabilizing and whatever Lyra did years ago was finally completing itself. The doctor said Kate should be fine, but she wanted to study her more later. Kate slid off the bed feeling stronger than she had in years. With her senses sharper and clearer, she could feel Lyra's presence at the edge of her thoughts like a warm, Anglo-Theran head suddenly swung toward the door 1 second before alarms started wailing. Throughout the ship, Lyra breathed one word, saying, Consortium Fleet. Kate's hand went to her weapon as Lisa demanded to know how many ships. Lyra said enough ships to destroy a planet completely. The captain was already moving and giving orders to prepare for battle, but Kate was staring at Lyra, feeling something click into place in her mind. She said they could not outrun the consortium, but they did not have to try. Lisa asked what Kate meant. Kate looked at Theron, and the dragon looked back with what might have been approval in his ancient eyes. She said she knew what she was now, and she knew what she could do. Kate asked Lyra if Theron could navigate something called quantum layers. Lyra's eyes went wide as she realized what Kate was suggesting. She said Kate wanted to shift the entire ship through dimensions, and that even trained scattered navigators needed years of practice. Kate replied that she was not entirely scattered, and that was the advantage. She could see the layers like Lyra did, but she was still connected to human reality. She could be the anchor while Lyra and Theron guided them. Lyra protested, saying Kate would burn herself out from the strain. Kate said, then they better work fast. She asked her captain for permission to try something incredibly stupid. Lisa almost smiled despite everything and asked what Kate needed. But Kate told her to prepare the crew, because this was going to be rough. As Lyra rushed to her side, Kate felt the bond between them flare to life with an intensity that stole her breath. Theron lowered his massive head until his eyes were level with Kate. Looked at each other for a long moment, then the consortium opened fire, and Kate reached for reality itself. The universe folded around them like paper being creased by invisible hands. Kate Morgan, who died 16 years ago, finally understood what she had become. Kate stood on the bridge of the horizon, but she was not really there anymore because part of her consciousness had spread through the entire ship, like roots growing through soil. While Lyra and Theron navigated the impossible space between dimensions, she could feel every piece of metal and every wire and every heartbeat of the 300 people aboard the vessel, and it should have overwhelmed her completely, but instead it felt right, like she had been blind her whole life and only now could see properly. Lieutenant Ryan Blake called out from his station, saying the consortium fleet was still chasing them, matching their movements through the shifted space, which should not be possible at all. I squeezed Kate's hand tighter and explained. They were using a tracker connected to her quantum signature because they had been hunting her for too long to lose her. Now through the window, Kate saw colors that had no names dancing across surfaces that existed somewhere between solid and empty space. In the distance, she could see the rift of broken stars where 3 dimensions had collapsed into each other during some ancient disaster. It was the perfect hiding place for a secret meeting. It was also the perfect place for a trap, Kate realized suddenly, that the consortium was hurting them like animals being driven toward a pen they knew where. Kate and Lyra were going, and they wanted them to lead the way to the resistance gathering so they could destroy everyone at once. Captain Hayes said a word that would not be appropriate in formal reports. She asked for suggestions. Kate's mind worked through possibilities, combining her human military training with the quantum awareness bleeding through from her scattered heritage. She said they needed to split up, with her and Lyra taking Theron to lead the enemy away, while the Horizon went ahead to warn the resistance. Lisa said absolutely not, because she would not sacrifice her officer, interrupted gently, saying she was not asking permission, but telling the captain what had to happen. She explained that in 90 seconds, 3 more consortium warships would appear ahead of them, and if everyone stayed together, none of them would survive. Bridge went silent. Tryon started to ask how Kate could possibly know that. Kate said simply that she could see it happening, because the scattered did not experience time the same way humans did. Lyra had been teaching her through their bond, and now Kate could see probability waves collapsing and potential futures becoming solid. Amy's voice came over the speakers from the medical bay, saying Kate neural patterns were impossible, but stable. Whatever Kate was seeing, it was real. Lisa looked into Kate's eyes for a long moment. They had served together for 3 years and survived 6 battles and built trust through fire and blood. Now Kate was asking her to let go. The captain asked quietly if there was no other way. Kate wanted to lie and offer hope, but instead she gave Lisa the respect of honesty. She said there was no path where everyone survived. Lyra hand tightened on Kate, and she felt fear flowing through their bond, but not fear of death. Lyra was afraid of losing Kate after searching for so long. Kate sent back reassurance and determination and a promise she hoped she could keep. She told Lisa they would meet at the rift. Lisa was quiet for 5 heartbeats, then nodded sharply. She told Kate and Lyra they had 60 seconds to reach the hangar, but Kate was already moving, with Lyra beside her and Theron flowing through the corridors with grace that should have been impossible for something so large. The hangar bay was controlled chaos as crew members prepared a small shuttle and loaded supplies they did not have time to secure properly. Kate barely noticed because she was focused on keeping the horizon stable for a few more crucial seconds. Voice came through Kate's ear on a private channel, saying that Kate's cellular structure could handle whatever happened, and she was tougher than she knew. Kate thanked the doctor quietly. Lisa voice came next, announcing they were dropping Kate's shuttle in 3 seconds. Reality twisted. The horizon phased one direction, and suddenly Kate and Lyra were in the shuttle with Theron coiled in the cargo space, and they were alone with a consortium fleet bearing down on them. Lyra said this plan was either brilliant or suicidal. Kate asked if it could not be both. They dove deeper into the rift, with reality breaking around them like shattered glass. The consortium ships followed, with weapons charging and sensors locked tight. Kate observed that the enemy really hated Lyra, the alien woman explained she had stolen Theron from their breeding facilities when she was 17 years old, making him the last free dragon in the entire galaxy. The consortium had been trying to reclaim him ever since. Theron roar shook the shuttle, and through their bond, Kate felt his rage and grief for his lost kind, and his determination to deny the enemy their prize. Kate asked quietly, how many dragons there had been before Lyra, whispered that thousands had existed once, all magnificent and ancient and wise. Consortium had captured them and tried to break them and use them as weapons. When that failed, they killed them. Altherin only survived because Lyra was reckless enough to break into the most secure prison in the Empire. Kate said that did not sound reckless, but rather like the same girl who pulled a dying child from a collapsing wormhole. Lyra smiled sadly and said she had always been terrible at walking away from impossible cause. Ikriskate replied that she was lucky for that. They burst from the rift into normal space, and Kate's breath caught in her chest. Hundreds of ships floated in the darkness, representing dozens of different species. Some were sleek and technological, while others looked like they had been grown instead of built. All of them bore scars from fighting the Consortium. All of them turned their sensors toward the shuttle as it screamed into their midst with enemy ships in pursuit. The voice crackled over the communication system, speaking in a language Kate should not have understood, but did, thanks to her scattered abilities. The voice demanded that Kate explain why she had led Consortium forces directly to their secret meeting. Kate activated her own and said her name was Kate Morgan. She explained she was a human and scattered hybrid bonded to Princess Lyra, and they brought warning that the Consortium knew about this gathering. They were coming in force, not just for Kate and Lyra, but for everyone. Silence answered her words. Then a new ship emerged from the gathered fleet, larger than all the others, with markings that seemed to shift as Kate looked at them. When the voice spoke, this time it carried weight that made the air feel heavy. The voice said Lyra, name with anger and disappointment, said she had sworn never to return and had promised to live in exile rather than in danger. Her people further. Lyra breathed the word father, and Kate felt shock ripple through their bond. Everything made sense. Suddenly, Princess Lyra, exiled for saving a human child hunted by the Consortium for stealing their last dragon, now returning home with consequences following in her wake. Lyra said she was sorry, but Kate was worth the risk. King of the Scattered said coldly they would see about that. He ordered them to board his ship immediately and pray they had brought hope instead of extinction. Consortium warships chose that moment to emerge from the rift with weapons hot and hungry. Kate looked at Lyra and saw her fear reflected in violet eyes. She told Lyra to hold on because she was about to meet her father and he probably would not. Like Kate, very much. Tharant laughter rumbled through the shuttle. Lyra said faintly this was going to be a disaster. Kate grinned despite everything and said probably, but at least they would face it. Together behind them, the Consortium fleet opened fire. The future of the galaxy hung in the balance like a coin spinning in the air waiting to land. The throne room of the scattered flagship was nothing like Kate had imagined it would be, with its simple design. Instead of grand decoration and living crystal that pulsed with soft light, instead of cold metal and sun machinery, King Aldrich sat cross-legged on the floor rather than on an elaborate throne, and his pointed ears were gray with age, and his violet eyes were dim with old grief that had worn him down over many years. Lyra knelt before him while Kate remained standing because she was uncertain about protocol and unwilling to show submission. She did not feel in her heart, though. King studied them both, with his gaze lingering on their joined hands and on the way. Theron had positioned himself protectively behind them like a wall of scales and ancient power. When Aldrich finally spoke, his voice was soft as snow falling, but twice as cold. He said Lyra had saved a human child 16 years ago. Against his direct command, and against every law their people held sacred, he had exiled her for that choice. Now she returned with that same child grown into something that should not exist while leading enemies to their doorstep. He asked why he should not simply hand them both to the Consortium in exchange for peace. Kate felt Lyra flinch, but she stepped forward, placing herself between the king and Lyra without hesitation. She said he was better than that because the Scattered did not bow to tyrants according to everything Lyra had shown her through their bond. Deep down he knew that peace bought with surrender was just slavery. Wearing a prettier masks, Scalants crashed through the room like thunder guards. Tensed and hands moved toward weapons that looked like they had been grown from bone, and Starlight Aldrich expression did not change at all, he said. Kate spoke boldly for someone whose existence was an abomination against nature. Kate shot back that she spoke honestly for someone who did not ask to be anyone bridge or weapon or political problem. Lyra had saved her Because she was kind and brave, not because she had a master plan, yes. Kate was something that should not exist by their laws, but she did exist. Question was not whether she was an abomination, but whether the king was wise enough to use the weapon. The universe had given him, Lyra hissed Kate's name urgently, but Aldrich was leaning forward now, with interest sparking in his ancient eyes. He asked if that was how Kate saw herself as a weapon. Kate said bluntly, that was how the consortium saw her: 3 warships and a dozen support vessels, all chasing one small shuttle and willing to massacre a resistance gathering just to ensure she did not survive. That it was not the response to an anomaly, that was fear. They were terrified of what she represented. Aldrich asked what that was exactly. Kate took a breath and reached into the bond with Lyra and into the quantum awareness that let her see probability and potential futures spreading like branches. She said she was proof that the consortium narrative was a lie. They had built their empire on the idea that species could not unite, and that hybrids were weak, and that submission was the only path to survival. But Kate stood here as evidence against all of that human tactical training combined with scattered quantum awareness bonded to the last free dragon in the galaxy. She was everything they claimed was impossible, walking and breathing and refusing to die. Quietly, Theron rumbled his approval with smoke curling from his. Streldrick was quiet for a long moment, then he rose with fluid grace that made him seem young despite his age. He said the consortium fleet would breach their defenses in 40 minutes even, with all the ships gathered here. They lacked coordination to mount an effective defense. Most of these species had never fought together, and had no shared language for battle, and no integrated tactics. He asked if Kate had a solution to that problem. As well, Kate's mind was already racing with human military doctrine colliding with scattered quantum probability mapping. She said she had a solution, but he would not like it. Taldrick said dryly, to try him. Kate explained rapidly that Lyra bond with her was strong because she had saved Kate, and they had 16 years for the quantum signature to develop, but that same signature existed in everyone aboard this ship and in everyone in the fleet, all scattered and all quantum aware. What if they could create a temporary tactical bond, nothing as deep as what Kate and Lyra shared, but enough for real-time coordination? An advisor stepped forward with crystalline features, sharp with alarm. She said absolutely not, because battle bonding was forbidden due to the psychic damage it caused. Kate interrupted, saying the risk was worth it if it meant survival instead of extinction. She knew she was not scattered and had no right to suggest this. But individually, these ships could not win united. Through a quantum tactical network with Theron amplifying the signal and Kate serving as the anchor to human reality, they would move like a single organism. The consortium had never faced anything like that. The advisor snapped that it was suicide because the strain of bonding hundreds of minds would kill them. Lyra stepped up beside Kate and said quietly that her father knew Kate was right. It was insane and dangerous and completely unprecedented. It was also their only chance. Eldrick looked at his daughter for a long moment. Kate felt emotions she could not name flowing through the bond from Lyra. Grief and hope and desperate love all tangled together like threads in cloth. The king said softly that Lyra really believed in Kate and in this human who should have died 16 years ago. Lyra corrected him, saying she believed in them, and in what they could be together, and in what all of them could become if they were brave enough to try. Aldrich murmured that sometimes bravery and madness looked the same. He turned to his advisors and told them to begin. Said to coordinate with the fleet commanders and to pray that this did not kill them all. The next 20 minutes were chaos, with Kate at the center of it. Lyra guided her through scattered mental disciplines she barely understood. Technicians set up quantum resonance amplifiers. Theron settled into a specialized chamber designed to channel his abilities. Lyra warned Kate privately that this was going to hurt. When the bonds snapped into place, Kate would feel hundreds of minds pressing against hers. It would feel like drowning. Kate said simply that she trusted Lyra. Lyra had been keeping her alive since she was 6 years old. She was not stopping now. Through the window, Kate could see the consortium fleet approaching with weapons charging. Lyra whispered that they had killed so many species and burned so many worlds they thought they were invincible. Kate said then they should teach the enemy otherwise. The battle bond activated. Kate consciousness exploded outward like a star-going supernova suddenly. She existed in 300 ships at once, feeling the fear and determination of a dozen species there. Thoughts crashed against hers in waves of alien sensation. Felt herself breaking apart like light through a prism. Then Theron presence smashed. Through the chaos like an anchor thrown into stormy water, the dragon mind was vast and ancient, and absolutely certain it held. Kate together, when she should have shattered into pieces through him, she felt the other minds beginning to find rhythm and pattern in the chaos at the center of everything, steady as a heartbeat was. Lyra Kate opened her eyes. On the screen, the consortium fleet was minutes away through the battle bond. Kate felt the resistance fleet waiting for her command. Hundreds of ships moving as one organism, thinking with one mind. She smiled. Kate said to show them what unity looked like. Her voice echoed through 300 ships at the same time. The consortium opened fire. The resistance moved like starlight made into physical form. Every ship anticipated every other ship movements. They were coordinated with precision that should have been impossible. Wove through enemy fire like dancers moving through rain, with shields overlapping and weapons firing in perfect sequence through the battle bond. Kate felt consortium shock. They had no defense against an enemy that moved with singular purpose. Kate pressed the advantage hard. She owed for formation changes and concentration of fire on weak points. The fleet responded instantly, executing complex maneuvers with gray ships that had never fought together, moved like they had trained for years. The lead enemy warship shields collapsed, then its hull broke apart. Then its reactor exploded in a bloom of deadly light through the battle bond. Kate felt 300 ships worth of satisfaction. Lyra called that the enemy was breaking formation, trying to scatter and overwhelm with numbers. Kate said to let them scatter. She called for a new formation to shepherd the enemy toward the rift. The resistance fleet split into hunting groups, each moving with deadly efficiency. They did not just fight, they herded and drove and pushed the consortium inexorably toward the wound. In reality, Aldrich's voice came sharp with alarm, asking what Kate was doing. Kate showed him, pouring the tactical picture directly into his mind. The rift dimensional instabilities, how consortium shields interacted badly with dimensional space, the cascade failure that would happen if enough enemy ships got close. Enough to the Aldrich breathed that it was brilliant, and ruthless. Kate said she learned from the best. Felt Lyra pride warming her from inside the consortium, realized the trap to light there. Ships designed for overwhelming power were slow in dimensional turbulence. When Kate gave the command and the resistance opened fire together, the energy destabilized. Already fragile spacetime, the rift expanded like a wound, tearing wider reality. Reached out with hungry fingers, Kate watched through 300 screens as warships were pulled into dimensional collapse, with shields failing and hulls breaking across multiple states of existence. 3 months after the battle, Kate Morgan stood before a window in the scattered flagship, watching stars that existed in 17 dimensions at the same time, because her eyes could now see probability fields surrounding each point of light, like crystalline trees made of potential futures. She was beautiful in ways that went beyond human understanding, with ears that came to elegant points and skin that held faint luminescence and eyes that glowed with soft violet light. But she was still Kate, and that was the miracle. Lyra appeared at her side, moving silently like someone who had spent years hiding from enemies. She said Kate was brooding again. Kate corrected her, saying she was thinking about the horizon and Captain Hayes and Amy and all the people she left behind. Lyra leaned into Kate's side with comfortable closeness and assured her they were safe. Kate last message had confirmed the consortium had not touched human space since the battle. They were too busy trying to hold their crumbling empire together now that the resistance knew how to fight. Back. Kate nodded, but the ache in her chest remained sure. It sent messages explaining what happened and what she had become. Mamie's response had been fascinated from a scientific viewless. A response had been understanding, but sad. Both made clear that Kate was welcome to return whenever she wanted, but Kate knew the truth. She could not go back. The woman who served on the horizon was gone, transformed into something that could never fit into human military structure again. She could visit and maintain connections, but home was somewhere else. Now home was here, standing beside Lyra with Theron. Massive form coiled nearby, watching stars that existed between dream and reality. Lyra reminded her that delegations were waiting, representatives from many worlds, all wanting to meet the human who became scattered. The bridge who proved unity was possible, Kate.
Else.
Said they wanted to meet a symbol, and she was not sure how to be that Lyra. Suggested Kate just be herself. The woman who told her father he was better than surrendered, the soldier who bonded 300 ships and won impossible odds. The person who chose transformation over death because she believed the universe needed. Her Kate smiled and said, when Lyra put it that way, it sounded almost heroic. Lyra said seriously that Kate was heroic, even if she was too stubborn to see it. Therein, laughter rumbled through the deck. The dragon had grown larger since the battle, as if freedom had unlocked something in his genetics. His scales shimmered with colors between visible wavelengths, and his eyes held wisdom that made Kate feel young. Lyra said smugly that Theron agreed with Herc, countered that he was biased, but she reached through their bond and felt the dragon affection washing over her like warm sunlighty sound echoed through the deck, signaling visitors. Kate straightened and smoothed her armor that blended human military design with scattered style. It made her feel grounded and reminded her of who she had been while declaring who she had become. Lyra asked if Kate was ready. Kate took her hand, feeling their bond pulse with support and something deeper that had been growing stronger every day. She said, with Lyra, she was always ready. They walked together through corridors of living crystal, past crew members who bowed their heads in respect, past warriors who had fought in the battle and now looked at Kate with reverence. It still made her uncomfortable, but she was learning to accept it as the price of being a symbol. The delegation chamber was vast, designed to hold representatives from species of many different sizes. Kate scanned the room, cataloging threats and exits. Out of habit, she noted battle scars on some delegates and nervous energy from others, but it was the human standing in the corner that made Kate breath catch. Captain Lisa Hayes looked older than Kate remembered, with tired eyes, but her uniform was crisp. Beside her stood Amy with a tablet clutched like protection. Kate fell into military formality without thinking and addressed Lisa as ma'am, saying she was not expecting them. Lisa interrupted, saying she would not let Kate do this alone. Kate was still her officer, changed or not, and human or not, Kate was hers. Kate felt something tight in her chest. Really, she said she was not sure how that worked with regulations, given she was technically a different species. Now Lisa said the paperwork was a nightmare. Me. It stepped forward cheerfully and said that after explaining to the Admiralty that Kate was the bridge between humanity and the largest resistance coalition, they decided to be flexible also. Amy may have suggested studying Kate's transformation could change medicine. Kate asked, amused, if that was true. Amy's gleamed, saying, absolutely, but first Kate had to survive this diplomatic situation. She asked if Kate knew how many species were requesting alliances based on her success. Kate groaned, saying she was a soldier, not a diplomat. Lisa corrected gently that Kate was a symbol. She knew Kate hated it, but symbols mattered. Hope mattered right now. Kate was both. Delegations began gathering, with representatives from 24 species coming together to discuss coordinated resistance against the consortium. Kate felt Lyra's hand in hers, and Theron presence through their bond, and the weight of expectations settling on her shoulders. But she also felt ready. King Aldrich entered last, commanding immediate silence. He had aged visibly since the transformation, as if letting Lyra back into his life reminded him of lost years, but his eyes were clear and voice strong. Said they were here because one human and one scattered proved unity was stronger than division, because a dragon who should have been last of his kind refused to accept extinction, because impossible things happened when people were brave enough. His gaze found Kate, and she saw approval and acceptance, and something like pride. He continued, saying, Kate, Morgan had been human. She became scattered to survive, but in doing so became something greater, a bridge between species. Proof that differences made them stronger, not weaker. Today, they would formalize what the battle began, a true alliance of free peoples. United against tyranny, the chamber erupted in sounds ranging from applause to crystalline chiming to vibrations. Kate felt in her bones. She stood at the center with Lyra beside her, feeling the future branching into possibilities that glowed with hope. Lyra whispered for Kate alone that it would not be easy. The consortium would not give up without a fight. Kate agreed, but said they had never faced anything like this alliance before. She had been searching for purpose since she was 6 turns out. You do not find it, but build it, one impossible choice at a time. Thurn roar shook the chamber, mixing approval and challenge. Kate felt her smile growing fierce. She said to let the consortium come and test this alliance, they would find the resistance. Was not easy to break any more delegations. Began formal proceedings with debates that would shape dozens of worlds. Kate participated where needed, offering tactical insights and bridging communication gaps. But part of her awareness stayed with Lyra and Theron and the bond they shared that started with one desperate act of kindness 16 years ago. Lisa found her during a break, pulling her aside efficiently. She observed. Kate was happy different, but happy Kate considered lying, then decided Lisa deserved honesty. She said she was happy. She missed being human, sometimes missed coffee and normal gravity, and not seeing probability everywhere but. This felt right, like everything led here. Lisa said the Admiralty wanted formal diplomatic relations. With the scattered in the Alliance, they were offering Kate an official position as ambassador with full authority to negotiate for Earth's. Kate eyebrows rose, saying that was a lot of trust for someone not human anymore. Lisa said firmly that Kate was more human than half the people she served with. Kate had their honor and courage and stubborn refusal to quit. The DNA changed, but the person did not. She paused, asking if Kate would accept. Kate looked at Lyra, feeling silent support through their bond. She said she would accept on one condition. This alliance was not just about Earth and the scattered, but about everyone crushed under consortium rule. Humans did not get special treatment. They were equals or nothing. Lisa's smile was proud, saying she would relay that to Admiralty. They would not like it, Kate said, good, because she would hate to think she had gone soft. Break ended, and delegations returned. Kate took her place beside Lyra and Aldrich, 3 beings, representing the impossible, made real as the Alliance took shape around them, and species that never trusted each other began forging genuine cooperation. Kate Morgan felt the last pieces of her identity settle into place. She had been searching for years, Lyra told her at their first meeting, but the truth was, they both had been searching Lyra for the girl she saved. Kate for purpose that eluded her since the wormhole collapse. They found each other in wreckage of impossible circumstances. They built something beautiful from broken pieces, now together with a dragon who refused to be last of his kind, and an alliance of desperate hope. They would build something greater. The consortium conquered through fear and division. The alliance would resist through hope and unity. Its center stood a bridge between worlds who learned that strength was not in what you are, but in what you choose to become. Kate squeezed Lyra's hand, feeling answering pressure. Lyra had said she had been searching for Kate for years now. Kate could finally answer that she had been waiting her whole life to be found. Behind them, Theron spread wings that could block suns. Roar was the sound of defiance and extinction denied, and impossible futures becoming real. The war was not over. It was just beginning, but for the first time in generations. The oppressed had something worth fighting for. They had hope. They had unity. They had Kate.